Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers. Come on, me in and then join in the fun. Travel all over Australia. Ask the Leyland, ask the Leyland, ask the Leyland brothers.
This week we travel into western New South Wales, out here near Coloranabri, to meet one of those unusual characters that seem to be a fast disappearing race. And then we go on to Lightning Ridge and see a house which is made entirely of bottles.
Then up to the Northern Territory to have a look at the spectacular Kings Canyon, which is in the remote country west of Alice Springs.
And then finally, a spectacular and thrilling sport, the sport of hang gliding.
Mr. B. Smeals of Glen Waverley, Victoria, writes, "In all your travels you must have met some really fascinating old-timers. How about showing us some of these characters we read about in books, or are they no longer around?" Well, Mr. Smeals, probably one of the most interesting characters we've come across is George Howard. At 65 years of age, he lives a kind of life that few of us would put up with, yet he says he's happy. For 18 years he has lived in the old wagon, towing his meagre possessions behind on a cart. The wagon is drawn by horses as he moves about between Coloranabri and Burren, camping on the stock route at night, with only his dogs for company. His gypsy-like wagon is equipped with the most primitive of comforts, but his requirements are simple. He takes on work like cutting burrs or chopping wood sometimes, but these days, now he receives a pension, spends most of his time chatting to any friendly face that comes along.
These dogs you got here, George, are they working dogs? Do you work them? What, sheep?
All work with them two reds and the little black one. All like Alpha here, he drove himself in.
You working with sheep?
Yeah. I used to look after sheep, so like on a route, I'm not a drover, but like on a route, they get what they call a section, and you look after them on it. So
I see, yeah.
Pat Burke at Tamworth, I looked after sheep on and off for 3 years for him.
Oh, I thought you might have done a bit of droving in your time.
Can't count them.
Can't count them?
You got to go and count the drover.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
Because you might lose 2 or 3 here or 2 or 3 there and you end up 100 and odd short.
Yeah. The wagon you got here, did you build it up yourself or something?
Oh, no, I bought it off an old chap that's dead now. Ted Wright. He lived at Burren. I put the wheels on, like I got the wheels put on. They had old wooden wheels on. And I give 18 quid for the whole ship. 28 Chev and that's a wheel on, 21 inch.
Oh, that's a solid wheel. You use a couple of horses. You got, what, 2 horses, have you?
I got 5 all told.
5?
I got like 2 getting broke in and 2 I work in the van and I follow.
And how far will you go when you move on this time, do you reckon?
Oh, I think I'll be going to Walgett, I don't know.
Yeah, to Walgett.
I'm going to Burke, that's where I'm going, never been there.
Yeah.
The river I get there, I started off once and got to Warren.
Still here?
It's like this, so I turn around and come back.
You cook all your own tucker in the camp oven?
Yeah, that's where I keep it. Any other way I wouldn't be able to cook. All my life, this is all I've done all my life. Before the war, I used to have 10 horses. So.
Perhaps one day George will get to Burke, but it's more likely he will still be on the move around Walgett, Coloranabri and Burren for many years to come. He told me that he ran away from school at 13 years of age because the teacher gave him 6 strokes of the cane and promised another 6 in the morning. George never went back again. He served his country during the Second World War and nowadays sleeps each night in the loneliness of the Outback. His wagon is a far cry from a modern camper, but George is content. After all, he's in no hurry. He's not really going anywhere. At the moment, he's waiting for his new foal to grow strong enough to be able to move on. George Howard told me he really enjoys his way of life. "I'll bet I've got less worries than you," he said. "I just like it out here." Perhaps George has achieved that kind of peaceful existence that so many city-bound folks are trying to escape to.
Well, we've come to Lightning Ridge to answer a request from Eric Sands at Nambucca Heads in New South Wales, who writes and says, I would like you to show me the beer bottle house at Lightning Ridge. Why was it built, who built it and when, and where did the bottles come from? Well, Eric, to find out the answers to that, we're now going to speak with the present owner of the bottle house, as it's known today, and that is Nigel Dark. Well, Nigel, perhaps you can answer those questions. When was it built?
Certainly, it was built in the early 1950s, and it was built as a house out of bottles found at Lightning Ridge.
And why bottles? Any
Well,
reason?
in those days, building materials were hard to get, and so the young chap that decided to build it reckoned that the bottles was a good idea, and also being unusual.
And when did you come by the house?
The late 1960s, and we increased the size of the house from 1 room to 4.
Yes, it's quite large now. It extends right back. Just this front section was the original part, was it?
Just the front room, with the high roof part.
And the chap that built it, what was his name?
Tex McKell, and he was an opal miner and artist, and these days he's teaching art in New Guinea.
Now, notice looking at the walls, it looks like it's just mud holding it together. Is it any special kind of mud or just ordinary old
Just
dirt?
the ordinary mud around from the ridge, and also opal clay.
And what about leakages? Is it waterproof?
More or less waterproof. Being just mud, the water will just seep through and come down on the insides.
Now, since you've acquired the place, you've turned it into a museum, haven't you?
Yes, it's a museum of old relics from around the ridge, old bottles from around the ridge, and rocks, gems and minerals from all over Australia.
Oh, well, perhaps we'll go inside and take a look at those now.
The front room of the original home is still in good condition, and at the moment is crammed full of curios from the older days at Lightning Ridge. The bottles allow a certain amount of light to penetrate into the room, more or less eliminating the need for windows. Most appropriately, the house that is built of bottles houses many old bottles from the past, a collection of often odd-shaped containers which fascinate the visitor.
Oh, purple bottles. Now, are they always purple like that?
No, these have been turned purple by the sun. It's manganese in the sand when they're making the glass, and the effects of the sun turn them purple. That's a sarsaparilla bottle. This is an old pickle bottle, and he's also been turned purple by the sun. This one is slightly opalized, and that's the silica in the soil, and it has to be in the soil to get that nice colour on the glass.
Oh, yes, you can see it in it when the light on it.
You can see it when the light's on the glass, yes. This is the old torpedo bottle, and they made him so you couldn't stand him up because the cork had to have moisture to seal it. So you had to lay them down. And this is the marble bottle. It has a little marble in the neck, and when the soft drink was put in it, the marble was forced up into a little seal, and that sealed the bottle.
A newer room attached to the back of the House of Bottles is a display area for a collection of rocks, gemstones and mineral samples that are said by many to be the best of its kind in Australia. Altogether, a building where one can spend many hours browsing over the curious mineral oddities of nature, or ponder the even more curious motivation of a man who built his house from bottles, from the rubbish discarded by his fellow miners.
A letter from Mrs. Rosemary Storch of Dundas, New South Wales, is taking us west of Alice Springs. Mrs. Storch once worked at Wallara Ranch, where tours are run to Kings Canyon. She says, I have many colour slides of the area, and every time I see them, they bring back wonderful memories. Could you show Kings Canyon on your program? It would be lovely to see it again, as I often get homesick for the Alice area. Mrs. Storch mentions wildflowers after rain and waterfalls, but we are here in a dry time, and bushfires are raging through the area. The tinder dry spinifex is highly inflammable due to the resin produced in the leaves. A strong wind blowing from the west is fanning the fire along at 3 kilometres an hour. The road to Kings Canyon runs through Tempe Downs cattle station, and this fire has burnt out 3/4 of the property, destroying cattle yards and feed as it burns out of control. Burning on a 50-kilometre front, the fire is just about impossible to stop, particularly in this hot and windy month of October. A desert storm is the only hope for the people on the property. The fire has not only destroyed thousands of kilometres of cattle feed, it has also killed or left homeless many native animals and birds. Life is made a little easier for the plains turkey, who picks up the unfortunate lizards and insects caught in the inferno. After driving for 2 hours through burnt-out country, we reach a canyon where the fire has stopped. We've come as far as we can with the Jeep. To reach Kings Canyon, we have to climb 200 metres up that hill there and work our way around the north wall to look down in the canyon itself. Now, it's a good idea to take some water with you because it can get very hot up there, and the walk's about 3 hours. It's not very difficult, but it can get quite warm. The climb is fairly steep, but the views on the way up are well worthwhile. We're on the western end of the George Gill Range, which is a spectacular east-west line of low hills, about 250 kilometres from Alice Springs. The range is broken by various gorges. The most spectacular is Kings Canyon. Explorer Ernest Giles camped near here in 1872 and named Kings Creek after one of the backers of his expedition, Feldon King. The canyon takes its name from Kings Creek. Once at the top of the western rim of the canyon, the walker passes through an area Kings Canyon looks spectacular at any time of the day, but the best time to get the colours in the south wall over there is late afternoon. It's now 5 o'clock, and even though there's a lot of smoke in the sky today, you've still got some nice colours in the wall. Kings Canyon is a photographer's paradise, and many hours or even days could be spent exploring the canyon and its surrounding country. We hope our look at Kings Canyon has given you a chance to relive your memories, Mrs. Storch. We're certainly pleased you suggested we go there.